Welcome to this explainer by Forge College. If you were with us for our last session on security considerations and blockchain applications, you already know that a cryptographic hash is basically a digital fingerprint. Change literally one byte and the whole thing shatters completely. But what happens when a blockchain network has to process thousands of these fingerprints at once? I mean, we're not going to hire 1,000 digital detectives to check every single one, right? No way. We use math. Today, we're diving into the fundamentals of Merkle trees, which is a massive part of our blockchain structures and cryptographic hashing module. We are going to engineer a way to compress thousands of transactions into one tiny hash. Let's get into it.
So, here's our blueprint for today. We're looking at the block size dilemma, the anatomy of a Merkle tree, the nested envelopes analogy, a blueprint for 4 transactions, efficient Merkle proof verification, and finally, our takeaways and next steps. All right, moving right along. Section 1, the block size dilemma and compressing transactions. Let's look at the absolute logistical nightmare that every single blockchain faces. So, here's the million-dollar question. How on earth do we compress thousands of transactions into a single hash? Think about the sheer volume of data out there for a second. Blocks usually contain hundreds, sometimes thousands of transactions, and we desperately need a way to mathematically commit to all of them without having to store or, rehash that entire massive data set every single time someone wants to check a record. Because think about it, if a network node had to download gigabytes of raw data just to verify that you bought a cup of coffee, well, the whole system would just grind to an absolute halt. It'd be useless. So we need a shortcut, but not just any shortcut. We need a mathematically secure, totally tamper-proof shortcut. Section 2, Anatomy of a Merkle tree, Structure and Components. To solve this whole dilemma, we've got to shift away from the single hash view to a pretty brilliant structural method.
Take a look at the actual engineering behind this. It's super elegant. A Merkle tree is essentially just an upside-down binary tree. At the very bottom, we've got our leaf nodes. These hold the individual hashes of our actual data items, which are our transactions. Then, moving up one level, we find the internal nodes. What do these do? Well, an internal node basically holds the hash of its 2 child nodes concatenated, or, linked together. And we just keep doing that, pairing and hashing, moving up the layers until the whole thing culminates into one single master hash at the very top. We call this the Merkle root. So the absolute crucial takeaway here is that this binary layout gives us one single verifiable root that acts as a super compact cryptographic commitment to every single leaf sitting beneath it.
Okay, Section 3, the nested envelopes analogy, visualizing the math. Because if terms like internal nodes and concatenated values sound a little terrifying right now, honestly, don't worry. Let's break this down using something we all know, the mail. Imagine your transaction is just a little slip of paper. You fold it up, seal it in a small envelope, and slap a tamper-evident stamp on the outside that's derived from whatever is inside. That is your leaf node. And hey, hopefully it's a check and not a utility bill, right? Anyway, next, you take your envelope and you take your neighbor's envelope and you seal them both inside a slightly larger parent envelope. Now you put a new stamp on this parent envelope, and this stamp is based purely on those 2 smaller inner envelopes. That right there is your internal node, and you literally just repeat this pairing process. Pairs of envelopes go into bigger envelopes, getting a new stamp every single time, until you're left with just one massive outermost envelope with one final stamp. And that final outer stamp, you guessed it, that is our Merkle root.
But wait, what if you have an odd number of transactions? Like, what if you're left with this one weird, uneven envelope that doesn't have a partner to pair up with? Well, different systems handle this leftover envelope in a few different ways. Some will actually just duplicate the last envelope to make a pair, kind of like a clone. Others might just let that unpaired node move up to the next level unchanged, or maybe pad it with some dummy data. But here is the absolute key thing to remember. Whatever rule the system goes with, it has to be totally deterministic, meaning if we start with the exact same stack of original envelopes and follow the exact same padding rules, we absolutely must arrive at the exact same final outermost stamp every single time. No exceptions.
All right, Section 4, blueprinting 4 transactions, mapping out a concrete blueprint. Time to take off our analogy hats and put on our engineering hard hats for a second. Here we can see the actual mathematical mechanics in action. So let's say we have 4 transaction payloads, right? T1 through T4. First thing we do, we hash them individually to create our 4 leaf nodes, L1, L2, L3, and L4. Then the pairing begins. We stick L1 and L2 together in the strict left-right order, hash them, and boom, we get parent 12.
We do the exact same thing for L3 and L4 to get parent 3, 4. And for the grand finale, we mash those two parent hashes together, hash them one last time, and there it is, our ultimate root R. It's just an incredibly neat, tidy little cryptographic pyramid.
Section 5. Efficient Merkle-proof verification, proving inclusion. So we built the tree, but what's the actual advantage of doing all this? Just look at the dramatic difference in effort here. Let's say you want to prove to me that transaction 3 is actually in this tree. Now, without a Merkle tree, I'd have to be super aggressive and demand all 4 transactions from you, and then I'd have to rehash everything from scratch myself. It's a huge pain. But with a Merkle tree, oh, it's so much better. You literally just hand me the hash of T3, its sibling leaf L4, and their sibling parent P12. That's it. I just do a really quick local calculation, check it against our trusted root R, and boom, we're done.
And think about how many extra pieces of info you actually had to give me for that. Exactly 2. Just 2. That is the exact number of sibling hashes needed to verify one transaction in our 4-leaf tree. It's this beautifully efficient logarithmic path length, which mathematically we'd call log base 2 of n. And to put that into perspective, if we had 1,000,000 transactions, I wouldn't need 1,000,000 hashes to verify yours. No way. I'd literally only need about 20. It's wild. And the specific efficiency is exactly why blockchains embed Merkle roots right into their block headers. It saves just massive amounts of bandwidth for light clients.
Now, you might be wondering, why is this actually safe? Well, connecting back to our previous lesson on hash security, this whole structure relies entirely on collision resistance. Think back to our tamper-evident stamps for a second. If some adversary tries to fake a leaf, say they try altering transaction 3, they inevitably change that leaf's hash, right? And that instantly alters the parent hash sitting above it, which then alters the grandparent, and it just breaks the chain of consistency all the way up to the root. So unless they can somehow miraculously find a fake transaction that produces the exact same hash, which, by the way, is computationally infeasible, the tampering is exposed instantly.
Section 6. Takeaways and next steps. Let's wrap this up with the most critical operational reminders for your explainer journey here at Forge College and beyond.
Okay, let's summarize these structural blueprints. First off, Merkle roots are deterministic, highly compact commitments to massive amounts of data. Second, verification is incredibly lightweight, requiring only log base 2 of n sibling hashes. Third, always remember that the security completely relies on the hash function's collision and preimage resistance. Fourth, mismatched rules, so things like getting the concatenation order or the padding wrong, will totally break reproducibility between the prover and the verifier. You've got to get that right. And finally, the structure does trade a tiny bit of privacy for massive bandwidth savings, because while proofs do compress the data, they also reveal which sibling leaves are involved in the path. Definitely keep these mechanics in your back pocket as you progress through other topics here, because they're absolutely the bedrock of Web3 architecture. So you now have the foundational mental models to actually assemble proof paths and validate these claims. In our very next module, Constructing and Verifying Merkle Proofs, we are going to roll up our sleeves and really put these mechanics into action by constructing and verifying Merkle proofs against a known root.
But before we go, I really want to leave you with this thought. If a Merkle root can prove a transaction exists without revealing the whole block, what else could we cryptographically hide in plain sight? Think on that fascinating question. It seriously opens the door to incredible concepts like zero-knowledge proofs. To explore those answers and to continue your learning journey, be sure to visit forge.college and check out more of our Web3 explainers. Keep questioning, keep learning, and I will see you in the next one.